Hi. It's great to be here back in Canada after I shortly left Canada to go down to the valley to invent the future, but it'll be coming back at some point. So no bottle throwing or anything like that. It's not my fault. Yeah, I'm here really to talk about the future of augmented reality. And it's going to be a pretty deep dive. I've got quite a lot of slides and not that much time, so we're going to kind of go all the way down the rabbit hole as fast as possible. So yeah, my role, as Lisa mentioned, is Senior Director of Product and UX. Essentially, I'm responsible for the way you're going to use these systems in the future and how they're going to affect your life. So Meta is a company, for those that don't know, it's been around for about 6 years. So it's not a super early stage startup by any means. It is probably got about 120 people in San Mateo, sunny San Mateo in California. And yeah, we build the future there. We build these future products. But before that, before I did that, I did a bunch of other things, just for some context for the talk. I worked at all these different companies for the last, I'm showing my age now, 17 years. So I've been doing this a long time. I've built wearable devices. I built headsets and designing VR and AR. And I've always been interested in this side of specifically product design. So yeah, I was actually working on AR apps at Nokia back in 2010. So I know everyone talks about Apple's AR kit as though it's something new, but while it's much better, it's actually very similar to me to what we were doing back then of holding a smartphone up and bringing up information about the world. So that's kind of interesting. And then last year, as mentioned, I wrote a small book for O'Reilly. They approached me and said, hey, can you write a book about this future thing? And I said, yes, I'd love to. And then they said, great, you could use quotes from previous books. And I was like, there are no books. And they're like, wait a minute. No. I mean, like when you talk about the web, you're going to reference other web books and then other web books and other things. And of course, with mixed reality, AR, et cetera, I was like, there's nothing there. Like, it's Wild West. So that was a big amount of trust from them to do this. I commend O'Reilly for allowing me to do this. And there'll be a link at the end of the slides which will show you where you can download this for free. You can buy the book or download it for free. So much of VR and AR is focused on this. Not these two people, but this kind of thing, right? It's all about fun. It's all about games and entertainment and robots walking around. And, you know, it's as if the future is about people are going to be paid to sit around doing nothing, right? So if that doesn't happen, that universal basic income, and we actually have to work in the future, that's the kind of area that I'm involved with. So this is like, OK, you know, what is the GTD of the future, the getting things done? So yeah, it's like sometimes it's called the no fun times place, but actually these are really deep, wicked problems we have to solve for the workforce. And so, and it also has implications on how we're going to have fun as well in the future. So let's just clarify some of these terminologies, because I get this so often, like, what exactly is this? And we say that we make augmented reality in Meta. But then they're like, but VR, is that like Oculus? Like, no. And then it's like, so is that like Magic Leap and HoloLens? It's like, yeah, it's getting closer. It's much closer. So let's just go through the R's to give a little recap. This one, the oldest one of all, is virtual reality. Most people here will be in some way probably familiar with what virtual reality is, whether it's Oculus, Google Cardboard, or the myriad of different headsets and hardware that's out there already. This is a still from Valve's game called The Lab. So, you know, we've got these highly detailed, realistic-looking elements, and you're immersed in this world. Lots of skeuomorphic elements to this for a sense of realism. But this is not the future that I had in mind. So something that we're not thinking about. This is not the thing we're talking about for this talk. So it's not about replicating the limitations of the real world, right, or trying to emulate physics of the real world. So this is the other one which people know about, which is AR. And, you know, Pokemon Go, big hit. Now we've got Apple's AR kit, holding a smartphone up, moving it around in front of you, people mindlessly chasing things down the street. like I said, this has been going since like 2009. This kind of paradigm has been around. And it still actually doesn't actually make a whole lot of sense. It never did then. It's not going to do now. No one's going to be really running around doing things with their phones all the time. It has to become a headset. So then you move on from what people think is commonly AR, and you move into, this is not the future, by the way, that I had in mind either, mixed reality. Hot topic. Lots of people refer to this future as all mixed reality. This is a slide taken from a Magic Leap mock-up. I'm going to say a live capture, but they've never shown what they're doing yet. So this is a mock-up of what they keep showing everybody of this is the future, and you'll have dragons, and there's a whale crashing through the floor, and dinosaurs like coming out buildings, and a crazy email Tumblr thing that doesn't really work very well for its purpose. So it's also not the future that I had in mind and that we have in mind at Meta. That's not what we're trying to solve here. So, straight up desktop metaphors or tossing in, goblins and monsters is not really going to replace all the machines that we have in our pockets or the laptops that we have around us every day. So, this is a really big area of research for us. It's like, well, why are we going to wear these headsets? Why are we going to wear these glasses and charge them all the time? And what are we going to do with? How are we going to interact with these things? Are we going to just like tap on virtual rectangles? Are we going to, how's the web going to be in this context? It's just going to be a panel that you tap buttons on? Well, this is where we have to look at how are we going to get things into a system and how are we going to get things out of a system. So in many ways, we need to talk about the history of inputs and outputs. And there's a lot to learn from a lot of the ways we've been doing things for the last 10 or 15 years, and some of the mistakes, arguably, that we've made in the past. So let's go for it. Let's talk about inputs. So this is how you get your actions and requests into a computing system. It's not going to do much without somehow you getting your needs into that system so that it can call and respond. So this is a famous quote from someone you might have heard of. Some guy ran a company some years ago, and they launched a product back in 2010. It was the iPad, and it was a paradigm-busting, magical revolution, etc. It was a great product. And one of the questions that Steve Jobs got from the press at the time was, well, we've already got like tablets, and Microsoft had a Surface back then. It was Courier, and it was an experimental tablet, and it had a stylus input. And he famously said this quote: "If you see a stylus, they blew it. That's it. This is the future. We don't do stuff like that anymore." But the problem was that while it was great for like touching icons on the screen and general purpose computing, where all you did was look at photos of your dog in iPhoto, or if all you wanted to do was browse the internet and gently slide the screen up and down, if you wanted to do creative things with it, if you wanted to actually create things on it, there was a different need for accuracy, right? So this was something that I guess Apple didn't really think about at the time, or thought they'd already solved some of the issues around this. So this is a thing called Linear Dragger. This is a piece of software that was created to solve a problem that was, I'm going to get into detail here. So when you touch on your finger on a target, you cannot see what's under your finger, because it's occluding what you're looking at. So of course, there's been these software attempts to try to solve this by saying, well, you touch something, and then next to your finger opens another bubble which shows you the thing that's under your finger, so that you can then understand what it is that you're manipulating. And this is incredibly complex and complicated for users to understand. So, and it also abstracts away a lot of the controls that people understand as well. So, with augmented reality, we need to think about how to design things that work well within the boundaries of our physicality and our understanding of affordances and metaphors. So, of course, Apple had this stance. Well, they had this hardcore stance until they invented a stylus. So they suddenly gave up fighting this battle and realized that for accurate input into a tablet form factor, for artists, for CAD creation and manipulation, these kind of things, there's a stylus. It's not a stylus, it's a pencil, OK? But they realized that you need to respect the way that people want to do certain things. So I'm not saying that we need to build a stylus for this new reality of all of these augmented reality futures, mixed reality futures, but we do need to consider accuracy. It's not just about robots jumping off the table on the floor and that we're not going to need any kind of accuracy with our inputs going forward. So this is something that we think about a lot at Meta. We really do a lot of research and development around this area. So this is something we work on daily, and we spend a long time analyzing and understanding how to create powerful affordances with intent and to minimize abstraction, we call it. So we're trying to minimize the idea of your brain trying to work out exactly what you're seeing and what you're doing before you're doing it, so that we remove this disconnection between the action and the intent. So another thing, obviously people have in their pockets, actually, voice UI. So this is Google's assistant. It's got better over the years. All of them have got better, the Siris, Alexas, Cortanas, etc. But it's still something that's hobbled. It's still not there. It's still something that you have to, basically, you're kind of like throwing the dice with a lot of it, because it's trying to understand your syntax. It's trying to understand context. It's trying to somehow run a search on the internet to find the thing that you're actually trying to describe. And it only has your voice to try to understand this with. So it needs to be pulled out of your pocket if it's on your phone, or if it's Alexa in your house, it's just listening all the time. And I think a few weeks ago, it called the police because there was an argument on the television, and this thing just called 911. And these are the issues that we have with introduction without context for some of these solutions. But imagine if you could take voice input and you could combine that with object recognition, and you start to understand how VR and AR may be able to understand your world and what you're trying to do at the same time. We've had many years of an internet where we have to formulate queries in our mind, and we have to input them into a box, Google's box in this case, and then we fire it to the internet, and the internet spins its wheels and pulls back a big pile of results that may or may not be related to how well you constructed your syntax. But imagine if we could reduce those error rates so that if I wanted to, for example, buy this water bottle, I could just look at it and say, what is this? That's all I need to do, and it's running a search which is based on object recognition, and I'm asking a question. And then when it tells me, I can just say, order 3 of these, and it's done. I've not gone somewhere. I've not gone to a website. I've not done any of these things. So this is something that, again, we're really, really interested in looking at for the future with Meta. And then if we do this, we don't need these terrible technological kludges that we have right now, especially in VR and AR. They're trying to replicate things like old mechanical input devices. I mean, the fact that QWERTY keyboards, which were designed initially to stop mechanical typewriters jamming, and we're actually replicating this and hitting this with drumsticks. This is not the future of communication. Now, I know why it's happening this way at the moment, but this is something that we know will not create that need for this technology. People won't use this. Right? So it's not the long-term solution. At Meta, we want to directly interact, reach out, and grab the objects that we have around us. We don't want there to be some kind of intermediary step where I need to understand what is about to happen. So if I pick up a chopstick or just a pointer, it doesn't tell me what it's going to do. It doesn't have any inference, and I can't use it as a magic wand because even the system won't know the context of what I'm trying to do. So if I've got virtual objects everywhere and I'm trying to use this thing between to do something, it doesn't know what I'm trying to do. But if I actually use my hand, I can reach in and grab the object. I can manipulate, stretch, scale, throw away, drop, all of these things. So we have all this working, and we are continually refining how this works and working with that body constraint. So to me, a lot of VR and AR looks like this. This is the early days of the web for those who are too young to remember it. This is how the web used to be, because it was good enough to just have a website. And you're like, whoa, I'm on the web. And you can do all these things on the web, and you can get information, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be just like, yeah. So anyway, it's something that designers, obviously, at the early days, the UX designers, the interaction designers, were not heavily involved with. They weren't designing these things with any sense of knowledge. They were just like, I guess, you can put like hyperlinks, hypertext, all of this stuff in there. It's good enough. Who knows what websites are going to be used for? How they're going to help people, apart from help Yvette with whatever she's selling. So, this is 1999, but we know what happened to the web. So, now we know, yeah, websites don't look like that anymore, although some do, but very ironically and cool, apparently. But this is the web that most people recognize, and this is because it's gone through so much rendering down. It's gone through denoisification. People don't want links all over the place. They don't just want the freedom of chaos. That's the flip side of the freedom is if nobody's actually helping guide anything, you will end up with total unusable chaos. So this is something at Meta we try to form like interaction patterns around augmented reality. We're not obsessed with the hardware. It's not about optics. It's not about what it looks like on your head right now. We're trying to solve the other problem, which a lot are not, which is how are you going to make it usable for the future? How can we convince any of you to put on a headset which will be hot and uncomfortable for many years to come yet, and use this if it doesn't increase your productivity? So this is something we've been working on. This is a screenshot from a product that we launched to the public, I think it was a month ago. We launched this at AWE. So we had a Meta booth there alongside HoloLens, ODG, and many others in the AR and VR industry. And the CEO of Meta, Marone, my boss, he showed this, brought it up on stage, showed this to everybody, and it was really real. It wasn't like we've just made this up, or it's CGI, or it's not real. It's really a real system, and we showed this to people at the conference. We won Best in Conference with this, so nobody had seen anything like this before. And it's the first true operating environment, and what we're trying to do is build frameworks so that developers, designers, people who content create don't need to think about reinventing the wheel every time they want to do something in augmented reality. It is not just enough to say, here's the hardware and just go for it. We're trying to help you form best practices, just like with the web when you have best practices, just like with mobile app design you have best practices. It is not enough to just say, go for it, because it will be inconsistent. You won't know why things don't work or why users don't get it. We're trying to minimize some of this. So, we're just getting started with this, just to be clear. So, there's a lot of different aspects to this. We have like two-dimensional legacy panels, we call them, the legacy world of two-dimensionality. And then we have things like, how do we ingest data? How do we manifest data in a meaningful way to people? Like, what are the formats of the future? How do you share context? All of these things. So, outputs. In the context of VR and AR. So, VR is, and it shouldn't come as any surprise to many people here, is obsessed with recreating reality. I mean, that's the metaverse. That's Ready Player One. That's Snow Crash. This is the dream world of Palmer, that it's like I'm living in an entirely synthetic environment that I can meet my friends in, and they look like my friends, and they're high resolution, etc. Well, this is, I don't know if anybody is a motorcyclist here, but this is a Ducati fuel cap. So Before, just checking if anybody's got a Ducati in the audience. I don't have one, so I'm safe. But nonetheless, those rivets, those bolts, they do nothing. They're just there for decoration. They offer no structural strength to the fuel cap. In fact, they're just held in with plastic pins. So it's just to give you the feeling that it's solid, that it's real, that real engineering has gone into this. And this is kind of what VR is like. It's this idea of replicating, and everybody's measuring each other on photorealism, and it needs to be photoreal, otherwise it's of no value to people. But when building practical solutions, we're not looking to increase efficiency. We're looking to increase efficiency, sorry, not trying to match what we can do in reality. So it's not like, let's just make, a telephone if I want to speak to somebody, and it's going to be a telephone, and I'm going to have to pick it up and be like, hello, and press some buttons, and it's like, this is awesome. It's like, well, what is the future of how people communicate to each other? Like, how would people actually connect to each other and discover each other when all these rules have been got rid of? We're not in the business of building skeuomorphic UIs or skeuomorphic worlds. This is not the point behind what we're doing. We're trying to augment human capabilities. We're trying to increase the knowledge of knowledge workers. So we're trying to reduce the space between you and the knowledge that you need, and trying to see how does this change things. So this kind of leads me to an interesting conundrum, because you say, OK, give me all the knowledge, give me all the information. Like, you can serve it to me everywhere, right? Well, this is a slide from a video. It was called Hyperreality. It's a director called Kiichi Matsuda. And I don't know if anybody's seen it here, but I recommend you go and see this and see how the world could be if we don't actually bother trying to make sure we don't allow these mistakes to be made so early in the birth of this technology, giving freedom. If you give freedom, this is what it could look like, right? And this is one of the better captures. It gets worse. You're just bombarded by slogans, adverts, kitty cats, monsters, pay your bill. You're like, get me out of here. So it's also catnip for Adland, of course, because then in Adland, they're like, this is amazing. We can message people in a way we could never do before. But this is not what people want. This is the funny thing, right? It's like, no, but that's what you want. The future's going to be just filled with the digital detritus. And it's like, well, do we want that? Is that something we want? Is that useful for us? It's not in the interest of human beings, that's for sure. It's not like humans desire this. It's in the interest of corporations. That's what it's really for, right? So we need to be mindful and empathic of others, of humans. We're not all the same. Some people will have heart conditions, and some people will be incredibly anxious or nervous naturally. We don't want to increase all this. We don't want to be making people collapse in the street. We don't want people to die, lawsuits and all the other stuff. So it's about understanding the environment and physical condition. And this is about ethics at the end of the day. So it's something we think about. We don't think about introducing a technology and then stepping back and watching it explode and saying, not my fault. So otherwise, you end up with this. Now, this is kind of a bit esoteric. If you were from the UK, you would recognize, and you were old as me, you would recognize this as an advert for a soft drink, which was called Tango. And it came out in the 80s, and it was a cult advertisement at the time, because what it was this guy who was orange, and when you drank some Tango, he would run up really fast behind you and slap you on the face to wake you up. And so this was just an advert, and it was like, oh, it's really funny, until everyone, being the UK, went out and started doing this to real people. So tap them on the shoulder and like this. And about, oh! And then people were like getting into fights, getting into trouble. Old people were collapsing. It was a national outrage. It worked for the advertisers. They were like, this is brilliant. This is great. But what it really represented was like notifications, that literal notification. So if you think about something like that in terms of AR. Like if you're walking down the street and you're wearing one of these futuristic headsets that's really small and, much like what Robert mentioned earlier, Robert Scoble, with these tiny, they just look like normal glasses. That's irrelevant, because if you're walking down the street and something jumps out from you because somebody's put some like adverts, virtual adverts to the side, and it jumps out and you jump into the path of a car, or it happens while you're riding your bike or you're driving. Like, who's liable for this? Is this really a good idea? I mean, yeah, it's buzzy and it's like, but that's so cool, it's the future. This isn't going to work, right? This isn't really going to work. So we have another thesis around this of do not disturb, right? We're trying to lower this endless interruption. We are trying to make it a calm technology. It should stay away from you as much as possible. It should only appear when you need it. It shouldn't just be there serving up stuff to you, right, all the time. So it's kind of an irresponsible design approach to go this direction. So designers in the room, it's your fault if this happens, by the way, because it puts humans into a continual fight or flight mode. And that's not healthy. That's not good. Right? So we're always looking into this. And this really brings us to the challenges. So there may be trouble ahead with this future, and we're aware of this at Meta. It's not just about making the new shiny thing, or Apple making a stainless steel headset, or brushed aluminium, or whatever, and releasing it to the public. It isn't as simple as that, right? The future is a bit more complicated. So all this technology, whether it's us at Meta, whether it's the HoloLens, whether it's Magic Leap, Apple, every single headset needs to be able to see. This is something we've not needed to have yet, but it needs to see. And so it needs to see in order to use this thing called SLAM. SLAM stands for Simultaneous Location and Mapping. It's how it understands and perceives the world. It knows that this is here, knows where you all are, knows where I am in space. So I can put a virtual object there, or there, or there, and I can walk out the room and come back in, and it will still be there, right? It's the holy grail of all of this tech. But this means cameras and sensors everywhere, right? It is on cars, like Tesla. It's in buildings, and now it's on your face. So it's looking at everything. So this is something that we've seen public reaction to this before. We've seen this story play out before. We saw this with Google Glass. So, Google Glass came out, the rise of the glass hole, etc., banned from entering buildings in San Francisco, ridiculed, lambasted, sitting in the shower, whatever it is, if Robert's here, because of perception around, but you're filming me. You're filming me. It's my privacy is being breached here. And this is something that is a big question for us, even at Meta, is like, have we moved on societally from that as a question? Are we able to allow these things to watch everything? Because they're not interested in you. SLAM sensors building mesh maps of the world in order to understand what the environment is. It doesn't know who you are. It doesn't care who you are. It doesn't know what you're doing. But it's still a camera, and it's looking at me. So this is something that I think we haven't got an answer for, but it's something we're going to have to deal with if you want any of this cool future stuff to happen. None of it's going to happen without it. So this is, I'd like to just leave that out there with you for a minute. The real reason why this matters is this. This is a LiDAR map. It's a three-dimensional topological representation of an environment, down to detail. This is actually a LiDAR map that came from Tesla. So Teslas, which is very interesting, they, of course, in order to self-drive and this big future, they need to see. So they have incredible LiDAR built into their cars, and they're building a continual map of the environment right down to where everything is, where the picket fence is, the sides of the buildings, people, all of it. And it just builds and builds and builds and builds. So we need this with headsets, because if we often talk about things like, in the future, I'll be wearing a headset, I could come, I could leave a present for somebody on a table somewhere, a virtual present. I could tell them I'd left something for them, and then they would come over, and lo and behold, it would be there on the table for them, because that's the whole point, right? Or I've left notes for my colleagues. I've left sticky notes on the wall for my colleagues, virtual sticky notes, which we have in Meta as well. But it doesn't matter if I can't share that topological map, because you'll never see it. You won't know where it is. Your headset won't know where it is. You need to give me now all the location detail, and you need to share that topological map with me. And then you need to share the metadata that's on top of that of exactly what it is I'm supposed to be looking at, and the permission settings around those objects. Right? So this is, again, something that for content serving in the future is going to play a large part in how this all plays out. But who owns this? Right? Magic Leap. I know we talk about that $1.4 billion or whatever for building their headset. But a large proportion of this is actually looking into building topological maps and owning the environment, including everything in it, down to detail. Where's the regulations for this? Do we need regulation to come in when we start to get into this? This isn't just a simple cartographic map with POIs. Now people can see my living room. Can they share it if a friend comes around and he builds a map of my house? And he's like, this is now available, right? Or like, you've given me permission to share this with others. How does this work? So should there be regulation around this new form of data? And so what we're really entering is an age of emotive coercion, right? All of these things. That's what they allow. Right? It makes the current paradigm of dark patterns in mobile design or dark patterns, and it's a bit like the airlines. You know how they try to upsell everything to you, and they make it obfuscated so that you will click the wrong button, and then you've signed up for something you don't want. Well, imagine it now in AR, how much you can control and maneuver people on a very visceral and emotional level to feel things. Not just present a screen and say, click this button, but now I can actually make you cry. I can make you scared. I can make you think things that are not there. And so when we get into seeing things that aren't really there, which is really the crux of it, whether it's a sticky note or whether it's an object on the table, it's like, now we're populating the world with a different kind of reality. These three amazing people above, they were caught last year in Jacksonville, Florida. They were caught by the police. They were running across the freeway. And the police grabbed them. They all sat down. And they were chasing goblins and dwarves because they were high on PCP and methamphetamine. And so they took them in, made them dry out. And that's what they believed. They were like, there was things chasing them, and they were chasing things. And so what if in the future you no longer need pharmaceuticals, but you're getting those same issues? Now it's like a thing was after me, or this something happened. I was on the bus, and I thought somebody was looking at me, but they weren't really there. Or something came flying towards me, and I ducked out the way, and it wasn't really there. Right? So these things are delusional states of mind. That's what it is. It's delusion. And this is something we actually care deeply about at Meta. We have a bunch of neuroscientists at Meta who spend an inordinate amount of time looking at how this is going to affect human beings in a good way and in a bad way. And so in many ways, that's why we call it augmented, not mixed reality. So it's something we believe that we need to sort out now and not wait for other people to start releasing things into the wild. We don't want dinosaurs bursting through walls to deliver email notifications. We don't want to have goblins and trolls running down office corridors. There may be real goblins and trolls in your office, but nonetheless, this is not necessarily something that we want, because it's kind of like Clippy. Does anyone remember Clippy? I mean, like, do we really want reality Clippy? That's the thing. Is that the thing that we're really looking for? I don't believe so. We don't believe so. I don't think that's what human beings are going to want. I don't think that's what human beings are going to use. So we believe the future of AR is more of a design challenge and a societal question than it is a technological problem. Like, the tech will all get sorted out, trust me. It will all be sorted out faster than you think as well. You know, we already live in this technological future at Meta. My every day is in this Minority Report-like kind of world. So we know that it's not about miniaturization. It's not about if it's cool or not cool. It's about how we're going to assimilate and adapt this technology into our world. And so I like this quote from Alvin Toffler. He wrote a book called Future Shock, long, long time ago. The illiterate of the 21st century not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And that is the stage that we're in right now with this technology. We are now having to relearn a lot of the old paradigms because they just don't work anymore in this new world. And so we need to take on board these responsibilities. I take on board this responsibility at Meta. And we're not just selling headsets. We're not going to say it's not our problem. That's not good enough for us. We're going to hold ourselves to a higher level, a higher accountability. So we want to do things to make sure that we do not adversely affect society as much as we can. And so to be able to be mature enough to shape the future, and with that, to shape the future of AR. And with that, I thank you very much.